Greetings and salutations, Afrolytes. It is I, AfroMandias, back with another video today. I know AfroMandias is actually consistent with his video uploads. Holy cow! Who would have guessed, right? But yeah, no. I'm actually think I've found myself a good balance to actually start doing it like uploads and whatnot. So again, try to expect every post and upload on my Instagram at least every Wednesday or so. There's a lot of content that I have been working on and some stuff that I've been doing off to the side. And when I get to have a lot more time on my hands, especially since I'm in school right now, I'll be focusing on that a lot more because education is a lot more important. Unless you guys are able to kind of help me out with this, again, not trying to e-beg or anything, but if you guys are able to spread this, spread my channel and spread my videos to your friends, family, and whatnot, kind of get this stuff off the ground, I'll start working on my other stuff. But for the most part, we're just sticking with the videos and, the Instagram posts and whatnot. And I may start a Twitter as well. I'm not a big fan of Twitter, with all the stuff and whatnot that's going on there, But I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, Twitter is a lot better platform to kind of post your artwork. So thinking about it, but I'm not really expecting to make one soon, but just kind of look out for it. I'll post an update if need be. But, with all that being said, welcome back to another video today. And today we're going to be doing another part in this series, focusing on the Create the Champion series. And today we're going to be focusing on the character of Jack Osiris Flowers, or President Jack Flowers. This character is one of the earlier creations I've made in my universe, and it's kind of the reason why, or at least one of the one of the four main reasons why Andreas was actually able to come back and have a role in my universe, was because of this creation right here. Because when it was Jack, then it came to Rose, then it came to Alva, then it came to Elementals, so think of him as like the patient zero to kind of start all of this. Not necessarily saying that he is the reason that everything happens, but like through the creative process and character design and whatnot, I think I would like to point to Jack as to being the reason why everything kind of falls in line. Again, not saying that he is the prime reason that everything happens, but creatively, he is kind of like the train that kind of starts moving, right? So, Jack Osiris Flowers. I had mentioned this character back in my first video, kind of explaining about where he is and where he came from and what role he played in the Great War Saga. And I also went a little more in depth of his role later on after the story. Again, didn't really go into depth too much because A, I didn't want to let everyone know what happens, didn't want to spoil it, and B, he kind of plays a bigger role after the Great War Saga, kind of essentially becoming the world president in the Chronicle universe. But let's kind of take a step back. Where did Osiris come from? So Osiris is actually a Xerxian prince of the Xerxian people. And again, if you guys don't know who Xerxians are, I explained this in my first video, kind of, going over what their biology is and what they look like. Not necessarily in detail, but I just kind of went over what they look like and how they act in their society. Again, it's just like a minor thing, but if you guys want to check out that first video, I have it on my YouTube channel, so if you want to check it out, you can check it out. But let's kind of go over what Xerxians are. Xerxians, think of them as just space Egyptians, right? So, in my universe, the Xerxians are kind of the reasons and the inspirations for why the pyramids exist. Again, I'm still kind of figuring out how to write this to where it makes sense, but if you want just the full basis of what Xerxians are, they are just space Egyptians, their culture and whatnot, and even their names are based off of Egyptian gods. So that kind of shows the influence that the Xerxians had on planet Earth, or, at least the planet that we live on. That's not necessarily to say that they visit our planet all the time, but when they came down, you know, prehistoric years and whatnot. They left a blueprint for the pyramids, and that's kind of how the Egyptians, you know, kind of built the pyramids and the Egyptian gods and whatnot. Again, I'm thinking about writing that into the story. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep it though. Let me know what you guys think about it, kind of being the reason why the Egyptian culture exists and whatnot. I'm thinking about keeping that in the story, but I feel like that kind of conflicts with a lot of other things that happens later on. But just let me know what you guys think. I think that's a pretty interesting idea that, that basically, yes, aliens are kind of the reason why, pyramids exist. Not saying that that's my belief. I don't, I believe that aliens do exist, but if aliens came to our planet, I would expect there to be more than just big triangles made of sand, if that was left in their wake, right? But, that's kind of how, they made their presence on Earth, was because of the pyramids and whatnot, and the Egyptian culture and whatnot. So Xerxians are, how I came up with the name Xerxian was just one of the pharaohs, if I'm not mistaken, was named King Xerxes, and I just kind of really liked the name, so I just took Z's out and put Ian on there, so Xerxian, go figure. What are they like as a people? They're more or less like, they're very civil, but they are very much war based. They like to conquer. They like to conquer. They like to establish dominance over one another, and in their society, they are prone to combat, and they love the thrill of the fight and whatnot, and they love just to spread their influence throughout the universe, and whether it means to destroy it if they stand in their way, or to conquer it for their resources, they go and do that. So think of them as like the Viltrumites from Invincible, the Saiyans from Dragon Ball, and in some iterations of Kryptonians in the DC universe. Think of them as just like a tirade of, an alien race that just likes to conquer, basically. And, their inner society, it's more or less patriarchal. Obviously, there's a king, the head king in charge. The king in this situation is named King Set. King Set is he is the ruler of the Xerxian people, and he's been ruler for a minute. And he has two sons, that being Prince Anubis and Prince Osiris. That is our boy. Prince Osiris is going to be later on known as Jack Flowers. I'll explain why that is in a minute. But that's kind of the idea about where essentially everything started. And I had their, what is their mother's name? I think it's like Hathor. That's one of the female Egyptian gods' names, and I feel so bad because honestly, she does play a role in the Great War Saga, at least inspiring Jack to be more, because she realizes that her son is nowhere near like his brother or his father. His brother is more like his father, and while he's a little more on not the sensitive side, but he's a little more empathetic. He believes that not everything has to be through fighting. You can work together and whatnot, blah blah blah. But that's just kind of the backstory of Osiris, is that he didn't really have a tragic upbringing. I would say that his father was very, let's just say tough, was very brutish, not only to him, but also his brother. So, not to say that it was easy, but at the same time, he grew up in a royal family. He was kind of given everything to him on a silver platter. He was given the best training. He was given the best foods. He was given the best beds. So, it's like, sure, it wasn't easy, but at the same time, like, he wasn't fighting for scraps and whatnot, right? Sorry, I'm scratching my leg. But that's kind of the, at least the starting point to where he is. Again, still kind of writing some things out, but, he isn't the main focus yet of the Great War Saga. The main character, obviously, is Andreas Holmes, and if you want to check out that video, I have already posted that in my YouTube channel. Again, Creating a Champion, Andreas Holmes, literally is the video before this one. So, so Jack Flowers, for the time being, doesn't really play a role right now until the Great War Saga happens. And the Great War Saga essentially kind of, delves upon, not only Jack, but also Alva and Himawari and whatnot, and how their relationships builds up in the Chronicle universe. So like, what makes Jack Jack? What makes Osiris Jack Flowers? So Osiris is a very unique character in the sense that he is basically, he's more connected with his emotions as compared to his other, like, at least the other males in the society. Not to necessarily say that he isn't like competent or like logical, but he also believes that you can at least feel sad when you need to feel sad, or you can feel angry when the time is right, or feel happy and whatnot. He's not like a unthinking killing machine, unlike his brother and his father. So with him being the youngest brother, he wasn't really the, like, next to the royal heir that would be his brother Anubis. But Anubis has always been shown to be a lot more rash, a lot more irritable, and the differences between him and his brother Anubis were basically night and day. While Anubis, like, basically slept with any Xerxian woman who threw themselves at his feet, Jack didn't, Osiris didn't really want that sort of thing. He really just wanted to find, true love and whatnot. And there was a lot of women who threw themselves at him, but he, treated them with respect and was like, please don't do that. I'm sure I'm your prince, but I'm just like you. My butt is made for sitting. It's not made for kissing. You know what I'm saying? But, that's kind of the, juxtaposition that he has, like, compared to his other, like, ancestors, I guess you can say, or his own family. And his mother is kind of the reason for that. Not to say that his mother is a bad, like, influence in his life. In fact, she is kind of the reason that he is the man who he is, because Anubis, he fell more in line with his father because he was the firstborn, and obviously he has a lot more responsibility to uphold compared to his younger brother. And so he kind of had to say, like, he basically had to grow up into an adult, right? So, but this video isn't about Anubis. That video will be coming later on. Let's just kind of focus on Jack. So Jack is a lot more closer to his mother because she sees that he isn't really, like, not to say that he isn't a fighter, but he isn't a killer. He doesn't, he's not gonna, like, display his power. He's a lot more humble. He's a lot more, laid back compared to, like, his father and his sibling. So, they were able to kind of, be a lot more closer as compared to his relationship with his father, which, was kind of already on a teetering tightrope, but that's, different story for a different day. But when the Great War Saga happens, there's kind of there's conflicts between the Jury Rays and the Xerxians, and at this point, this is where Jack meets Himawari. Now, that's not to say that they haven't met before. They did meet when they were kids, but they didn't really, know how to talk to each other because they were kids, right? And she wasn't able to really talk to him because she was guarded by her older brother, Jun. And again, I'm going to have a video on Jun really soon too. Just be prepared for that. But, again, this is kind of, the starting point to their relationship. The Great War Saga happens, and, there's, like, old politics and whatnot. And again, I'm not going to really go into that because, one, still kind of writing some things out. And two, I may have a video that kind of explains, like, what the Great War Saga is and how that happened. So, again, that'll be another video down the line. But that's kind of how Himawari and Jack meet. Both Jack and Himawari kind of, like, hit it off as a way, they weren't enemies. Like, they weren't enemies at this point. They were just kind of, like, saying, like, oh, listen, you can't do this. And they were like, no, you can't do that. So they weren't enemies, but they were definitely teetering on the line of, like, causing a race war, right? So, Jack and Himawari, they, or I say Jack, I meant to say Osiris. See, it's stuck in my head and whatnot, right? But Osiris and Himawari, they kind of fall in love and yada yada, Romeo and Juliet, they, I explained this in my first video that, it's a tragic love story and whatnot. Not in the sense that they die, but in the sense that, their love, is kind of in the crossfire of this great war. And so, again, this, I'm still writing some things out on how they interact, but the reason why Himawari it falls head over heels for Jack is because she recognizes his strength not only as a strong, logical leader, but also a compassionate one. She sees that he is different from the rest of how the Xerxians are shown to, how they display themselves, I should say. And so she kind of, she sees that he's more of a loving and compassionate, Xerxian, and she also sees that he has the strong will of a king, right? So, again, still writing some things out, but that's kind of their relationship. And Jack also falls head over heels because, it's a beautiful princess, and she has, he kind of sees his mother in her. I know, I know, post your Sigmund Freud memes in the comments, like, oh, Sigmund Freud, his theories about, the reason why guys like their girlfriends is because they remind them of their mother or whatever. But that, that kind of, it's just, that's kind of the reason why, is because he also sees how compassionate she is towards his people, along with her being the empress. She's very much more compassionate compared to how her father was, right? So, that's kind of, they see just how much they, are able to get along with each other and whatnot. Again, still writing some things out, and it's going to be corny, but you know what? I like, if love isn't corny, that's not love. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's kind of, where they start off. Of course, the Great War happens, Cinderella Man is introduced, and he wrecks house, right? So this kind of, for the time being, when Cinderella Man is a threat, or at least a bigger threat than the war itself. Excuse me. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, excuse me. When Cinderella Man is a bigger threat than the war itself, the four sides, or I should say the two sides with their allies, kind of put their differences aside for the time being to take down Cinderella Man. So things are kind of at peace for the time being, but they're still like, I got my eye on you. Like, just because, he's incarcerated doesn't necessarily mean we're friends. We're just allies for right now. So this kind of strengthens the relationship between between Osiris and Himawari. They get closer, they kiss and whatnot, and then, obviously there's a, both sides, don't really like this because, one, they're in the middle of a war, so it's kind of like, hey, what's going on? Another, not to say that everyone disagreed with it. Some people, some of the sides saw it as like a weird, like, cosmic sort of way of saying, maybe this is a way that we can just unite, is because the prince and the princess love each other. Others thought it was sacrilege, and they were like, no, this can't happen. Like, they need to stop, But again, corny love story later on. We'll talk about that later. But that, through the Great War and the Cinderella Man arc, that kind of helps strengthens their love for each other and kind of being there for one another and actually become more of a team. But obviously, tragedy strikes, Cinderella Man escapes from the prison. All heck breaks loose, and this kind of culminates to the end of the Great War saga. Basically, as I mentioned in my last videos, all of the races that were a part of this war are dead, or at least most of them are. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There are some stragglers here and there, but that kind of, basically the races that were participating in the Great War are just gone and dead. Their worlds have been destroyed, their friends are gone, their family's gone. Kind of as a weird, messed up way. Technically, did the heroes really win in the end? No, but at the same time, yeah, again, we're going to be talking about the Great War Saga in a different video, but that, focusing on Jack, this is the part of the story where him and Himawari escape from the dying planet that Andreas and Cinderella Man are fighting on, and this is where they fly to Earth, right? And I had mentioned this in my Chronicle Universe explained. This is where they kind of crash land, and it's around sometime in the Vietnam era. This is where Jack and Himawari land on Earth, and obviously they're comforting each other. And then, they obviously don't know what planet they're on, and they are just they're scared, they're lost, they're confused. But they can at least have some comfort in knowing that if they are going to die, they're going to die with each other, right? So, at this point, they land on planet Earth, and they're in the middle of Vietnam. They're fighting, they're trying to survive. Then they meet Isaac Irons. Isaac Irons is a key player in the Chronicle universe, basically being the bridge that kind of helps Jack go from a fish out of water to a resident of Earth. He's kind of like, he's basically just a walking bridge that kind of helps Jack guide along himself through Earth. And, as I mentioned in my Chronicle video, he also is basically, he's not like a metahuman, but he's very smart. He has like a very high IQ, so he can build stuff and whatnot, yada yada, Tony Stark, Lex Luthor kind of business. But not only do Jack and Osiris and Isaac Irons kind of have this good friendship and whatnot, but they're more or less kind of like rivals in a sense. Not like it's a friendly rivalry, right? It's not like, oh, I'm gonna rip your head off or whatnot, but it's like, oh, I respect you because you kind of bring a new clairvoyancy that we aren't the only ones on Earth, and Jack kind of has the same sentiment to him, like two, very much two different creatures, but somehow there's more to them than what meets the eye, literally, because Jack's a Cyclops, right? So but they kind of have their friendship and whatnot. So things are kind of going okay for Jack. Although he lost his mom, he lost his people, lost his planet, and basically lost his family. Things are going good. He found a new home, at least for the most part. But that new home is underneath a very much authoritative rule. Still kind of working on that, but that's kind of where Isaac Irons basically comes into play, that he is also going against the authoritative rule of the world president. And the reasons I'm still writing that out to why it's unknown, but Isaac Irons, has this thing called the United Undercover. And I know I did this in my last video, but it's not it's the Undercover United. The Undercover United. So the Undercover United, or the UU, U square, whatever. The UU is basically, this underground agency that kind of is basically a rebellion that fights against the world government. And so Isaac Irons is one of the top dogs in there. And so he sees these two powerful aliens and it's like, no crud, I'm not going to, of course, I got to get them on my side and whatnot. So it was kind of easy because Jack and Himawari, or at this point, I guess I should say Jack and Rose, because at this point, I'm going to explain why, but basically, Himawari and Osiris join them because they see, or at least Isaac shows them just how much, tyranny has ruled over this planet, and they saw firsthand how corrupt power can be from their fathers. So they were like, no, this can't happen. We'll help you put a stop to it and whatnot, right? So, Himawari and Osiris joined the UU, the United Undercover, and that's kind of where they build their foundation from there. They take the scraps from the ship itself and kind of help, with Osiris and Isaac kind of teaming up. Osiris gives access to his ship, the escape pod that he went on, to Isaac, and that's kind of what helps him at least build some weapons that will help him fight against the world government, right? So again, time passes, and then that's when they introduce themselves, the UU, to the Jailbirds. Whoa, right, worlds collide, and I had mentioned the Jailbirds back in my Chronicles video as well. I'm not going to really go in depth to who they are. Again, there are going to be multiple videos explaining who they are and where they came from, but just know that they are just a group of convicts that escaped from a supermax super prison and are fighting against the world government as well. So, think of them just like literally just a bunch of escaped convicts. And the UU was like, oh, we've heard about you guys on the news. You guys fought against like a subsector of the world government. So we'll take you guys in as well, because they're fighting for the same cause, right? So, not only that, but they're also fighting for metahuman rights. So, that's kind of how the jailbirds got to meet up with Jack and kind of form this alliance. Again, I explained all of this in my Chronicle video, so I'm not going to reiterate, but they win, the good guys win, the metahumans are given rights, and Jack is made the official new president of Earth. Now, obviously, the thing is that in the story, in a technical sense, Jack is, so the rules state that whoever takes out the world president is the new world president. It's very simple, I know, but first of all, politics, they're already stupid and conflicting and and whatnot, and boring as is. Obviously, if someone brings up politics at the dinner table, everyone is going to roll their eyes. So I kind of made it as simple as whoever kills them, whether you're good or evil, doesn't matter. If you can kill the world president, you deserve to be the world president. You know what I'm saying? It's there's no voting. Whoever's in charge, good on you. You're able. Again, I'm not saying politics isn't a thing that we should know about. I'm just saying that this is probably the most simple way of being the world president. It's less convoluted. It's literally, if you're strong enough to take out the world president, it's the saying, if you're aiming for the king, you better not miss. You know what I'm saying? If you have the power to take out the world president, then you deserve to be world president. Simple as is. So, sue me. Put flowers in the mail. But the thing is that Jack isn't the one to take out the world president. It's mostly the again, I'm explaining this in my jailbirds video when I get to it, but basically the spirits of the meta that formed together made this being known as the spirit of meta that took out the original world president, but it's just it fades away. So it's technically, it was supposed to be the world president, but it's gone now. So they were like, you know what? We don't know who could be the next world president, so we'll just give it to Jack Flowers. He has experience with being a king, so just give it to him. So, day is saved. Metas are given the proper respect that they deserve. Yada yada yada. And then, later on, they, Jack and Isaac worked together. Jack, Rose, and Isaac kind of formed this, alliance. They build the Earth better together, and that's when they at least find the signal to where David and Alva are. Again, they're gonna have their own separate videos, but they get them back from battle, the battle planet that they're on, and bring them back to Earth. David, obviously, he feels a lot more emotional because when he left, metahumans were seen as terrible people, but he comes back, metahumans are given rights. A lot more people are like, oh my God, the metahumans, yay, and whatnot. So this kind of warms David's heart, and he, states to Osiris that he is forever in debt with him. And, that's kind of, Jack is kind of a very charming guy, and David, sees, they already kind of have a good established friendship back on the Great War Saga. Sorry, there's something on my foot. Ooh, ouch. Itchy foot. But this kind of establishes that they're great friends between David and Jack and whatnot. So that's kind of where it goes off from there. Then Jack has his own story later on. He goes against this other metahuman group, but they are a lot more rough. It's kind of similar to how, I say this, but again, I'm going to explain this in my jailbirds video. This kind of is similar and mirrors to how what Caboose kind of faced when he, I'm not going to spoil it, but just know that Caboose kind of has his own side story, and he fights a group of metahumans that are kind of a little more wishy-washy, but, again, we're just going to push that to the side and focus on Osiris. So Osiris fights a group of metahumans that are a lot more rough around the edges and basically kind of put justice into their own hands. And Jack obviously puts a stop to it. Still writing that one out and still kind of planning how I'm going to do the sequel in my head. But then that's another story that he's going to be working into. Then he has a part 3 story to his like little story arc where his brother actually comes back, right? So Anubis is alive. So obviously still kind of writing some things out, but you know, him and his brother kind of butt heads, and unfortunately, you know, I'm not going to spoil it, but you know, some things don't work out and a lot of things happen. It's very sad, you know. As I mentioned before, Osiris is a very emotional man, so obviously tears flow and whatnot. So that's kind of what I'm working on for Jack right now. Obviously, he does form the Immortals, which is just the my version of what the Justice League or the Avengers are. So the team consists of obviously the Jailbirds, so whoever the main Jailbirds are, Caboose, Jade Diamond, Carlos, August Thor, and Elias Kobayashi. So you know, the Jailbirds right there. Then there's also Himawari, Jack, David, Alva, and Isaac Irons. So it's a big team, but obviously it's not consistent with how it's made up. The Immortals are just, think of them as just like the defenders of like Earth and whatnot, right? So, you know, if you were part of the Jailbirds, you know, and you know you fought with Jack, you are kind of considered as a like co-founder of the Immortals. So, you know, again, that's a different story for a different day, but just know that Jack and Isaac kind of come together. So it's kind of funny to think of it as like a Pokemon evolution. So the, you know, Jailbirds and whatnot, you know, they're kind of like a little subsector in there, but like it goes from the United Undercover to kind of Unite Undercover with the Jailbirds, then they're the Immortals, right? So, you know, it's kind of, you know, like a little stepping stone and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. But that's kind of Jack's story that I have right now. Obviously, the Stars get involved, and the Immortals have to fight the Stars, you know, and obviously more tragedy strikes. But again, I've mentioned that in my other videos. You know, check those out if you wish to know a little bit more. Again, you know, these are going to be the videos I'm talking about for creating a character, creating a champion. Is going to be a little more shorter. You know, I say that as I'm 30 minutes in, but you know, it's just more or less kind of going in depth of this one specific character that I'm writing about, right? So, you know, what are his powers? What are Jack's powers and what are his abilities? So, obviously, for his physiology, he has super strength, super speed, super durability, yada yada yada. Shna, you know, EP time, whatever. But you know, he, you know, also has the ability to project like, you know, balls of balls. He's able to shoot like laser beams and whatnot, right? So, you know, think of them as like Key Blast from like Dragon Ball. So he's able to do that, but he's also able to do long strings of it, and like he's able to shoot laser beams out of his big eye and whatnot, right? So, you know, that, and also he has a suit of armor that kind of enhances abilities by 100-fold. So, you know, he also has that as like as part of his weaponry. Also, with him being president of Earth, he's also surrounded by the top tier, like highest guard that kind of defend him. He doesn't really rely it on too much, but he does use it in situations that involve hostages or if he needs more backup, right? So, you know, yeah, he doesn't necessarily need anyone to protect him because he's basically indestructible as is, at least in the context of where he is on Earth, right? But, you know, he still uses it for his other missions, right? That are a little more, you know, he can't do it by himself. So, you know, that, and also since he is of royal blood, he is a lot stronger compared to his other Xerxian brethren. And he also stands about like 8'2", so, you know, not a short guy. He's a bit tall dude, you know. You're gonna have to create taller doorways for this man to go through. So if he walks through that, I would say his head will go through that ceiling right there. He's a big boy. He's a big man. Eats his Cheerios. So, you know, that's kind of what his powers and abilities are. He can fly, obviously, and he also has different types of technology at his hand. He can teleport. You know, he has different types of orbs that can like scan rooms and whatnot. So, you know, not only does he rely on his strength, but he's also very intelligent. He's a, you know, master, like, tactician, obviously with him being a prince and, you know, was soon to be king of his people. He obviously needs to learn how to lead, right? So he has a very high battle IQ, and also he is, he's also, as I mentioned, he's fairly intelligent. He's really good with the technology that's familiar with him, but also because of his IQ, he's able to adapt and learn to the Earth's, oh cow, with the world's like stuff, right? So he learns the Earth's media, like literacy, the math and the science behind it. So along with that, that makes him both, you know, equal intelligence in not only his culture but also in Earth's culture, right? So, he's a very smart dude, and he's able to adapt quickly on the fly. So, with him being the world president, he's gonna have to stay on his tippy toes, right? So, that's kind of the powers and abilities that he has. So, what does Jack mean to me? Jack is really, it's a very interesting question because I have so many characters and obviously all of them mean a lot to me. Jack, I would say, obviously means a lot to me. You know, for the most part, I obviously, my heart will always be for Andreas. No homo, pause. But for Andreas, obviously he means like, if there was any other characters that would rank as my number one, obviously Andreas would be number one. But for Jack, he does serve a good role in the sense that because of him, he actually kind of gave purpose to Andreas creatively wise. Again, I'm not trying to say that like Jack is the center of the universe or anything, but when it came to like the creative process and how to actually build the universes that I have now, it is because of Jack that kind of got the snowflake to roll down the hill and make a snowball, right? So, Jack is of high importance to me. And a lot of you were wondering, where did you get the name Jack Flowers from? And I had mentioned this in my last video, but basically I'm just going to make a long story short. My dad had mentioned that he knew a man that had the same name, Jack Flowers. And this man was always, every time he would leave his house, there would always be two girls by his side. And he was a big guy, always have a little small pup. And the pup would like bark at the kids and he would tell it to shut up and it would shut up, right? So, I remember him telling me that story and I was like, Jack Flowers, that is such a cool name. It's very, very simple, but very, it rolls off the tongue, Jack Flowers. So that name kind of stuck with me for the time being. And when I was making him, obviously this is kind of the meta reason why his name is Jack Flowers. But in the story, there was a soldier who was also named Jack Flowers, who like basically helped Jack and Himawari kind of, go through and help them like establish themselves. Unfortunately, he was killed in battle trying to, fight for a better world. So Jack, in honor of this fallen soldier, he takes on the name Jack Flowers. And a lot of people are going to be asking, oh, well, why Rose? Why does Rose have the name Rose? And Rose actually has a reason, is because, throughout all the destruction and everything, again, this is just a small little tidbit, and who knows, maybe this could be the lead off point to my other video when I talk about Himawari, right? Who knows? But this is kind of the, the reason why her name is Rose is because throughout all the destruction and she sees throughout the war and whatnot that happens on, through Vietnam, so for some reason, she sees a rose, like, or at least something red that is peering out from the ground throughout all the destruction that is surrounding her. Obviously, roses don't really grow in Vietnam, at least from my knowledge, but it's honestly more of a symbolic kind of thing that even throughout the destruction that humanity can cause, at the end of the day, something will grow in its place. And that being a little rose, something so small and pure, but something so beautiful and can grow. So she saw that and she wanted to know what that flower was called. A lot of the guys didn't know exactly what it was called, but since they were in Vietnam. But one of them said it looked like a rose. And so she was like, a rose. And so that's kind of why she adopted the name Rose, is that throughout all the conflicts, something so small and something so innocent and beautiful can still stand proudly. Again, I kind of just spoiled why Rose kind of has her name, but it's just like a nice little Easter egg for maybe a video in the future and whatnot, right? But that's kind of the reason why Jack has his name, at least in the story context. And where does Jack morally stand? Obviously, he's if you look at the title, he's a good guy. Obviously he doesn't kick puppies or push grandmas over and whatnot, but he does stand for truth, justice, and believes that dreams are the pathway to allow us to become better people. And obviously a lot of people are asking, Jack, with all this strength and power, why didn't he just conquer the earth himself? And that's the thing, is that Jack doesn't want to do that. Jack sees the beauty in life and whatnot, and that's kind of from at least on his father's side and father's perspective, along with his brother, they saw that as a weakness. But his mother saw that as a sign of strength. That, obviously there are bad things in this world, but life is truly precious, and that you can't, you only get one. That's the thing, is that you only get one life. And so Jack believed that all life is sacred, and that whatever that individual soul does with their life, they should choose for themselves. And so kind of the inspiration to Jack is, think of him as like a mixture between Superman, Optimus Prime, Captain America, little sprinkle in there, So think of them as basically my big blue Boy Scout, right? You got Superman, you got Captain America, you got Optimus Prime. Those are like the big blue, American, Boy Scouts, right? They see the good in everything. That's kind of my big blue Boy Scout in my universe, right? So that's kind of where Jack stands as an individual. He believes that all life is precious, and that even the evil ones, although they are evil, they deserve to at least live their life. And obviously that goes with punishment, right? That that doesn't mean oh, you can rob a bank and he'll just let you go, right? But that's just kind of where he stands. He doesn't believe in killing unless absolutely necessary. So that's kind of where Jack lies, at least morally. But again, kind of going back to what he means to me, and kind of end off on this video. But Jack, he's an all-around one of my favorite characters. Obviously, he's not he's not the top guy, but he is one of my favorite characters, because he is kind of the reason why I was able to get Andreas back into the limelight, and was able to at least write and go off on these other stories. So Jack means a lot to me, and honestly, I'm kind of glad that I was able to at least fully flesh out his character and his stories and whatnot. And I'm kind of glad to how these videos are being pumped out. Expect them every Wednesday or so. And again, I'll let you all know, if you guys don't see a video Wednesday, don't cry and scream oh my God, what happened, everything okay? It's just either A, I forgot, or B, I was too busy. But I was able to put this video together as a way, as a next step up. And again, the video consistency between building a bastard or creating a champion isn't really going to be consistent. Again, we're still kind of focusing on the Great War Saga characters. But as we go later on into the Chronicle and Legend universes, that will kind of, that will have a lot more variety. But for right now, the only building a bastard, I guess you could say, would be Cinderella Man. I guess I can add King Set into there, but I'm still kind of writing his story. But, with all that being said, Jack all around is one of my favorite characters, just because of how metaphorically much he means to me as an individual, but also just, with his character design and how he looks, I feel like he'll definitely be standing out amongst, the crowd. And you know, at least when my stuff does take off, I hope a lot more people do see as, you know, Great Blue Boy Scout. You know, I hope people don't still find that cringy, because honestly, I feel like we need a lot more Boy Scouts in this, you know, trying time. You know, there's a lot more, you know, then this is kind of our fault anyway. We spread a lot more, you know, mean and angry and hateful stories to one another because we like being angry. But at the same time, there's some stories where you just sit back and you just see a good person doing a good deed, and you're like, I like that. You know, at least to me anyway. That's what I like. So, you know, I hope a lot more people find, you know, at least comfort in this character, knowing that he doesn't do anything out of malice, but he's more or less there to be a hopeful figure to us. And that's what he means to me, is that he is just, you know, my version of a Great Blue Boy Scout and someone who fights for truth and justice. But with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter video. It's kind of longer than my other ones because I was kind of going over his like physiology and a little bit of other characters. But, you know, again, I just want to say that expect a video every Wednesday or so. Again, if it doesn't pop up, I just got busy that week, but expect a video every Wednesday morning, or at least around in the afternoon. But I have been AfroMandias. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.